She was wearing the watch I bought her on another man's wrist in a Facebook photo, dated 8 months before I found it. And the thing that actually broke me wasn't that she was seeing someone else. It was that 3 days before I found that photo, I had just wired her mother $400 for a hospital bill. $400 while she was already gone. My name is David Calloway. I'm 64 years old. I moved to the Philippines with $440,000 in cash and suffrage on my entire retirement, everything 31 years of work built. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I found out, exactly what I did about it, and exactly what's left. Not because it makes me look good, because someone watching this right now is 3 months away from making the same mistake I made. And the mistake isn't what you think it is. Charlotte, North Carolina, 31 years in corporate finance, not the Wall Street version, the unglamorous version. Financial analyst, senior analyst, finance manager for a regional manufacturer that made industrial components nobody's ever heard of and everybody quietly depends on. Peak salary, $138,000. I maxed my 401k for 22 consecutive years. Drove used cars, paid off my house, 11 years before I retired. Took one real vacation a year. I was disciplined. But that was my whole identity, disciplined. I was married once. Helen, 23 years. 2 daughters, Stephanie and Rachel, good women. I'm proud of them in that quiet way fathers don't say out loud enough. Helen and I split in 2016. No villain in that story. Just 2 people who'd become excellent co-parents and mediocre partners. And finally had the honesty to admit it. By January 2021, when I retired at 61, here's the full picture. 401k and an IRA, $368,000. Savings $72,000. Total $440,000 and a plan. Delay Social Security until 67. Let it build to roughly $2,900 a month. Live off savings conservatively in a low-cost country in the meantime. Draw down maybe $50,000 a year maximum. By the time Social Security kicked in, I'd still have over $200,000 in savings, plus a monthly income that covered everything with a room to spare. Clean plan, specific plan, 31 years of discipline, built the plan. I'd been researching the Philippines for 3 years. Spreadsheets, forums, expat communities, cost of living breakdowns by city, healthcare quality rankings, visa structures, the SRRV, the Special Resident Retirees Visa, made it one of the most straightforward countries in Asia for American retirees. Cebu City specifically, large enough for real infrastructure, small enough to feel human, English everywhere, excellent private hospitals, a massive expat community. I landed in Cebu in March 2021 with 2 suitcases and $440,000. Rented a 2-bedroom apartment, $720 a month. Better than what I had had in Charlotte. Monthly spend those first months, about $1,400 total. On a $50,000 a year budget, I was spending $16,800. I was saving money in retirement. Everything was working. 4 months in, everything was working. And then Jeffrey had a birthday party. You know the moment where you almost don't go somewhere? Where something small nearly keeps you home? I almost skipped that party because I had a call scheduled with my daughter. I rescheduled the call. 14 months later, I'd give anything to have just stayed home. Jeffrey was a British expat. 8 years in Cebu, knew everyone worth knowing. The party was at his house, garden, food, music, maybe 40 people I mostly didn't know. That's where I met Marisol, 29 years old, executive assistant at a BPO company downtown. She spoke English the way people do when they use it 8 hours a day for work. Confident, precise, quick. We talked for most of the evening about Cebu, about what had brought me here, about her work, her family. She had a younger sister she was putting through nursing school, paying a chunk of it herself every month out of her own salary. She didn't ask me a single thing about money, not once, not in any form. At the end of the night, she wrote her number on a piece of paper from one of the notepads Jeffrey's wife had put on the tables, slid it across to me, said, "If you ever want someone to show you the parts of Cebu that aren't in the guidebook," and left. I sat there holding that piece of paper, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not desperation, not infatuation, just genuine interest in a real person. That feeling was the first undisciplined thing I'd done in 31 years. Everything that followed came from it. We started spending time together in September of 2021. And here's what I need you to understand before I go further. She asked me for nothing in the first 4 months. Not a dinner, not a gift, not money toward anything. She had her own salary, about $560 a month. She paid her own way, not as a performance, just practically without comment. I was the one who shifted things, not because she pushed me toward it, because I wanted to, because I was 61 years old, 5 years alone since Helen and I split. And here was this composed, capable, genuinely interesting woman who wanted to spend time with me. I wanted to take care of her. And that specific want is the thing that actually cost me everything, not Marisol. Me. The first money I gave her wasn't even for her. It was for her sister. And I sent it directly to the school, not to Marisol, to the school. I was still thinking clearly enough to do that. That's the last time in this story that I'm fully thinking clearly. January 2022, 4 months in, I asked about her sister Lena's tuition. Marisol looked at me and said, "Why?" I said I wanted to help. She said I didn't have to. I said I knew. Lena's semester tuition, fees, living allowance, 85,000 pesos, about $1,500. I sent it directly to the school. Marisol didn't cry, didn't make speeches. She said, "Ache, that's one of the kindest things anyone has ever done for my family." Then she made dinner, and I sat there thinking, this is what it feels like to use money well. That thought cost me more than I can calculate. Let me walk you through the money, because the money is the map of everything that happened. Year 1, 2021 into early 2022, living expenses for the year $17,000, Lena's tuition $1,500, dinner, small gifts, all my idea, nothing she asked for, $2,800, a weekend trip to Bohol, $1,100. Her family's roof in the province, her father mentioned it once I volunteered, $2,200. Total year 1, about $24,600. Remaining from $440,000, $415,400. Still on plan, still within budget, still telling myself everything was fine. March in 2022, the shift. Marisol quit her job, toxic environment, manager issues. She needed out. Maybe true. I had no way to know. What I know is that from that day forward, she had no income. And I became her income. Not because she demanded it, because I offered. I told her not to worry about rent while she looked for something new. Told her I'd cover her monthly expenses. Said it would be temporary. I said it like I'd thought carefully about it. I hadn't thought at all. I thought about the fact that she looked stressed and I had $400,000, and the math seemed simple. The math was not simple. Year 2, 2022 into early 2023. Her monthly expenses I now covered on top of mine. $620 a month. Lena's next 2 semesters combined, $3,100. Her mother's diabetes treatment, $890. A laptop for job searching, $780. A trip to Manila together to visit Lena, $1,640. Her father's fishing boat motor, family income, I told myself it was an investment in their livelihood, $1,100. Clothing, personal items, family contributions, I'd stopped tracking precisely, $3,400. Relationship and family expenses, year 2, $26,130. Living expenses, year 2, $18,000. Total year 2, $44,130. Remaining $371,270. I was now spending almost 3 times my original annual budget. I noticed. I told myself it was temporary. It was not temporary. October 2022. She moved in. My apartment had 2 bedrooms. I was using one as an office. I framed it practically. Reduce her expenses. Made logistical sense. And I want to be honest about what those months were like. Because the easy version of this story is to say it was all a lie from the beginning, and I was just too blind to see it. That's not what I experienced. Those months were genuinely good. She cooked real Filipino food, not restaurant food. She was organized, kept the apartment better than I did. She asked questions about my career, about finance, about the work I'd spent 31 years doing, in a way that felt like actual curiosity. We had a life together. Real dinners, real conversations, real Sunday mornings. I had not had that in 5 years. Whether it was fully real on her end, I still don't know. And I've stopped trying to know. What I know is that it cost me money I hadn't planned to spend, and that I didn't care. She never found a new job. Not for lack of trying, maybe. Interviews that didn't convert. Various reasons. Various explanations. By early 2023, the job search had quietly stopped being the point. The arrangement had become the point. I was a household provider. Her family's needs came to me as they arose. The requests were always real. I checked what I could check. But the request never stopped. And I never stopped saying yes. And then came a Tuesday, an ordinary Tuesday. She needed to make a call. Her phone was dead. She asked to borrow mine. 15 minutes later, she handed it back. She forgot one thing. She forgot to close the conversation. WhatsApp. On my phone. Still open on the screen. A man named Jerome. I wasn't looking for anything. I was checking a message from my daughter Stephanie. And there it was. 3 messages. Right there. Before the app timed out, Jerome asking when he was going to see her. Her saying soon, just be patient with the situation a little longer. Jerome asking how much longer. Her saying not long, I'm working on it. I put the phone face down on the table. I could hear her in the kitchen. Refrigerator opening. The clink of glasses. I made a decision in about 30 seconds. I was not going to react. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what I was dealing with. And not until I'd done what needed to be done first. 31 years in finance teaches you one thing above everything. Never make a move until you have the full picture. Never let the other party know you're looking. She came back with 2 glasses of water. Sat down, handed me one. I said, just thanks. We watched television. I went to bed at the normal time. I lay in the dark, and I started running numbers. I didn't sleep, but not because I was heartbroken, because I was planning. And by 6 the next morning, I had a list of 7 things I needed to do before I said a single word to her. 6 in the morning. She was still asleep. I opened every financial account I had any concern about. The main U.S. accounts, untouched. Inaccessible to her. I'd been careful about that from the beginning, but there was one local account, a Philippine peso account I'd opened for household expenses. I'd added her as a signatory about 8 months in. For convenience, for the days I wasn't around and she needed to handle something. Current balance, $1,840. I transferred every peso out of it in under 15 minutes. Then I called Howard. Howard was an expat lawyer I'd met through Jeffrey. Specialized in exactly these situations. I'd had his number stored for over a year. Under just the letter H. The way you store numbers you hope you never use. I stepped onto the balcony, door closed, city just waking up below me, 2-minute summary. He asked about assets in her name or jointly held. The local account, already handled. Property, no. I'd been specifically careful about that. Foreign nationals can't own land in the Philippines, and I wasn't going to find a workaround that put anything in her name. He said, yeah, that's why, then your exposure is limited. Main risk right now is ongoing spending, not asset loss. He told me what to document, told me what my options were. Then he said something I wrote down on a notepad and still have. Do this on your timeline, not hers, not right now, when you're ready. I hung up, stood there looking at the city, and I made one more decision. I was going to have dinner with her. Not today. I needed 3 days first, but I was going to sit across from her at a table, and I was going to find out exactly who Marisol was. Not the version I'd been building in my head for 2 years. The real one. The next 72 hours. I moved the rest of my Philippine account balances to a new bank. Different institution. Nothing she knew about. I added secondary verification to every U.S. account. I documented every significant transaction from the past 2 years. Every transfer, every tuition payment, every roof repair, every hospital bill, every boat motor. Sent copies to Howard. Sent copies to a personal email account I created specifically for this. And then I did one more thing. I looked up Jerome. Not deep, just enough. His Facebook was public. I found it in about 4 minutes. Scrolled back 8 months, and there it was. A photo of Jerome at some kind of gathering, smiling, hand raised toward the camera. On his wrist, a watch. Not a watch like the one I'd given her. Her watch. The one I'd had engraved on the back for her birthday, her initials, and a date. A date I'd chosen. I recognized it immediately because I'd spent 20 minutes with the jeweler deciding on the font. That was the moment, not the WhatsApp messages, not the phone call with Howard, not the account transfers. That watch, on that wrist, in that photo, that was when I understood the full picture. Day 3, I called the restaurant, made a reservation for 2, asked them to have her favorite dish ready when we arrived. Put on the blue shirt she'd once told me looked good on me, and I went to dinner. She was 45 minutes late, walked in, smiled, apologized. Traffic, she said. I always traffic in Cebu, so I had no reason to doubt it. Sat down across from me, reached across the table, put her hand on mine, said, "You look nice tonight." I said, "Oh, thank you." And I put my phone on the table between us. Face up, screen on, Jerome wearing the watch, her watch. She looked at the screen, looked at me. Didn't say anything for a long moment. When she finally spoke, she said my name, just my name, and I said, "Don't." She stopped. I said, "I'm not angry. I need you to know that first. I'm not going to make a scene. This is a good restaurant, and I'm going to eat this dinner." She went very still. I said, "I've known for 72 hours. In those hours, I talked to a lawyer, restructured every account, and documented 2 years of transactions. Every transfer, Marisol, every peso." She looked at the table. I said, "I don't need a confession. I don't need an explanation. What I want to know, the only thing I want to know is whether any of it was real. Any part of it. Just tell me the truth. You owe me that much." She was quiet for a long time, then she looked up and she said, "Yes." Not performing it, not managing me, just yes. She said Jerome had been in her life before me. On and off. She hadn't fully ended it when things between us got serious. She'd been trying to... She said that. I don't know if it's true. She said the help for her family had started genuinely. The needs were real. Lena's tuition was real. Her mother's diabetes treatment was real. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, she'd ended up dependent on me financially in a way she hadn't planned, and too ashamed to be honest about what was still happening with Jerome and trapped in something she didn't know how to get out of. She said, "I'm not a good person in this story. I know that." She didn't ask me for anything, not forgiveness, not another chance. She just told me what she could tell me, and then she stopped talking. I paid the bill, walked her to the door, said, "Jason, I need you out of the apartment by the end of the week." She nodded, left. I went back inside, sat at the table alone for 20 minutes, food untouched, candle burning down. Then I went home. Now let me give you the full financial damage, because this is what everything actually cost. Starting balance, March 2021, $440,000. Year 1, living costs plus everything I chose to spend, $24,600. Year 2, the year she had no income and I became her financial life, $44,130. Year 3, January through April of 2023, 4 months before the Tuesday that changed everything, $18,400. That includes a trip we took in February that I planned and paid for. Family contributions I authorized in March. Normal monthly expenses. Total out the door in 25 months, $87,130, remaining $352,870. Now, I can already hear what some of you are thinking. That's not that bad. He still has $350,000, and you're right. It could have been catastrophic, and it wasn't. I kept my U.S. accounts protected. I never put property in her name. I'd structured things carefully enough that when the moment came, the damage was containable. But here's what that number doesn't show. That $87,000 represents 25 months of decisions made by a man who had spent 31 years being precise about money and then met someone who made him want to stop being precise. The money I can account for. What I can't account for is how many of those $87,000 went somewhere real. Lena graduated nursing school. I know because Marisol's mother, who was never anything but kind to me throughout all of this, sent me a message 3 months ago to tell me. Lena is a nurse now, and I genuinely don't know how to feel about that. Here's what nobody told me would happen after she left. I expected to book a flight to Charlotte, pack the apartment, go home, admit the experiment was over. That's not what happened. 8 months later, I'm still here, not because I have nowhere to go. I have a life I could return to in Charlotte. Stephanie is there, Rachel's 2 hours away in Atlanta. There's a version of going home that exists and is available to me. I'm still here because somewhere in the weeks after Marisol left, I realized something I hadn't expected. I'd confused this place with her. The warmth of Cebu, the food, the pace, the way the light comes through the city at 6 in the morning. The coastal road I ride 3 mornings a week on the bicycle. I had been treating all of that as if it belonged to the relationship. It didn't. When she left, I waited for it to feel hollow here. For the city to feel like evidence of a mistake. It didn't feel hollow. It felt like mine. Jeffrey still comes by for coffee. The hospital where the doctors know me is still 10 minutes away. The apartment which she kept immaculately and I now keep adequately is still here. My life in the Philippines, the one I came for, the one that worked perfectly for 4 months before a birthday party changed my direction. That life didn't leave with her. I just had to find it again. Here's where the numbers stand right now. Monthly expenses, living alone and carefully rent, $720, food $280, utilities and internet $105, health insurance $280, transport $65, miscellaneous $130, total $1,580 a month. Annually, about $18,960. From $352,000 at that rate until Social Security at 67. 3 years of drawdown, approximately $56,800. Remaining when Social Security starts, approximately $295,000. Social Security at 67, $2,900 a month. In the Philippines, $2,900 a month is a genuinely excellent income. The plan isn't what it was, but it's still a plan, and it still works. That's the financial story. But here's the one that doesn't fit in a spreadsheet. I am 64 years old. I am in a city I have come to genuinely love. I have good friends, a manageable financial situation, a retirement that will be okay, and I'm alone. Not dramatically, not desperately, just alone in the quiet, specific way that gets heavier at 64 than it did at 44. I'm not looking for another Marisol. I want to be absolute about that. But I'm also not ready to say I want to spend the next 20 years of my life with only Jeffrey and a bicycle route for company. And that, what an honest next chapter looks like from here, is what I think about now. Not the money, not the watch, not the dinner. What comes next? So I want to ask you 3 things. Real questions, not rhetorical. Things I actually don't have answers to. First, when I found those messages, I didn't react. I planned. Moved money, called the lawyer, set up a dinner, wore the blue shirt. A therapist I spoke to once suggested that processing something like this procedurally financially, legally, structurally, instead of emotionally might mean I never actually dealt with it. She might be right. Is there a better way I should have handled those 72 hours? Second, Lena is a nurse. That tuition money, $1,500 sent directly to the school. I know where it went. I know what it built. Do I regret it? I'm genuinely asking, because I think how you answer that question says something important about what you believe money is actually for. Third, I'm 64. I'm staying in the Philippines. That decision is made. But I'm alone, and I have, apparently, a capacity for wanting real connection that survived everything that just happened and shows no signs of going away. What does a man do with that? Not what does he do about women or relationships. What does a man do with the basic need for connection? When the last time he reached for it, it cost him $87,000 a watch with an engraving on the back and 25 months of his life. I don't need easy answers. I know there aren't any. But some of you have been in some version of this, not in the Philippines necessarily, but in this specific place, after it ended, after the practical aftermath, alone somewhere wondering what the honest next chapter looks like. Tell me what you did. Tell me what you do sitting here. I'll be in the comment.